welcome to Sabs podcast. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. My special guests tonight are Dr. Karim Batesh and Peter Beatty, and they are both professors at the University of Hong Kong. Hey, guys.
Hey.
Hello. Good to be here.
University of Hong Kong.
Thanks so much for coming on. Ja'Cory Arthur said there are plenty of political advocacy organizations, but they are all disjointed. Who do you all think is most impactful?
If we're talking about the U.S., impact, I mean, that's tough. And that is the problem. You've got so many different organizations, but they're all separated. They're not all unified under a unitary kind of command structure so that we could really leverage the minority that we are on the left, the maximum number of people, leverage them to act as a unified whole. Yeah, that is a huge problem. But what I would say is we need numbers. We need the biggest possible organization. So I would look at just the numbers and be like, okay, well, DSA, 50,000, 60,000 people who at least sent in money so that they could be called members. That's the kind of organization you want to focus on to take over. You can criticize the hell out of it, and all of the criticisms I've heard, land. They make sense to me. But the bottom line is we need numbers. So you can focus on taking over organizations, and don't be like a wimp when it's like, oh, we failed one time. Yeah, of course, you're on the left. It's in our history, our DNA to fail. We fail, and then finally we succeed. But keep trying at taking over an organization that at least has a lot of passive members. And I would even go further to say taking over the Democratic Party should be a goal. It's not easy, but it's relatively easier than starting a new party, which I think is also good. But taking over the Democratic Party, why is that important? Because you have to recognize we are a tiny minority. The number of people who have the same basic understanding of how the world works, who knows what imperialism is, the number of people who have a conception that the US military constitutes an empire is so tiny. We are a tiny minority. But there's a lot of know-nothings, people who don't really know that much about politics, but because they grew up in a Democrat household, they're just going to vote D every time they go into the voting booth. So take advantage of that. So basically what I'm saying is we should aim high to take over existing organizations, or if you can grow one and get to the level of tens of thousands, ideally hundreds of thousands of people, great. I would just say all of the above strategy. But it disheartens me when I see people saying oh, well, we tried to take over the Democratic Party. How did that work out? It didn't work out. It failed. But that doesn't mean you just give up and you try to do something that has an even lower percentage chance of success. Because if you're going to get a third party to win, you need to replicate what the Democratic Party has already done over 2 centuries, which is to get lots of people who are not politically knowledgeable, who are not politically active or aware, to just reflexively go into the booth and vote for you. So I would say all of the above, but we need to be thinking about having a mass organization.
Oh, Peter, I wasn't going to bring up the Democratic Party. I wasn't going to go there. But since you went there, I actually disagree with that, because I feel like with the two-party system, in order for things to work, you need to get the money completely out. And I feel like until that happens, we're not going to see progress. And I think this is why some of us are so disappointed with people like AOC and the rest of the squad, because they ran on Medicare for all. They ran on these issues that were supposed to be progressive issues. And then they got into office and then they went along with the establishment Democrats. But again, that's the thing. It's they're supposed to change the party, but you don't change the party changes you. So I feel like until you get rid of all these corporations that are connected to these politicians, like the student loan companies, which is why they won't cancel student loan debt. They donate to Democrats and Republicans. You have to get rid of them until you get the money out from Lockheed Martin. You have to get the money out from Raytheon. That's another big one. The list goes on, but they donate to both parties. So this is why I tell people it doesn't matter who you put in, whether it's Democrat or Republican. If they're going into the two-party system, they end up caving in. And the few that did not, they pushed them out. Like Cynthia McKinney, they pushed her out. Look at what they did to Ralph Nader. So they don't keep those people. So I think you have to get the money completely out, and then maybe something could happen and change there. But I hear you. I'm just saying, I wasn't going to go there, but
Yeah, I don't disagree
Well,
with anything you said. I think everything you said is absolutely correct. My question is just, how do we get the money out of politics? If we had a third party that could get tens of millions of people to vote for it, absolutely, that's a great way. That's actually a preferable way. I would like to see both of the other parties just die. But if we can't get that, then the next easiest option is primary everyone. So like primary AOC, sure, but she's nowhere near like the top of the list of people that need to be primary. We need to decimate the party and completely take it over. So like that's a tall order. It's, I think, less of a shorter order than starting a new party, but it doesn't really matter to me. The point is we have to gain power one way or another. So if you're going to go the third party route, fine, but make sure that you understand the game you're playing, and you have to get tens of millions of people on board. If you can't get that, Democratic primary elections are relatively easier, as hard as they are, as stacked as the deck is, as much of an uphill battle that is relatively less than winning in a general election with a party that nobody's heard of if you don't get that information into people's heads. It's still plenty hard to win at a primary level, but a primary level, people, what is it? It's like 10 to 20% of eligible voters vote in primaries. In a general election, somewhere around 50 to 60% of people will vote. Then you're dealing with many more people who don't know anything. And if you don't have, a TV station or a radio network, how do you get that idea of this new party into tens of millions of people's heads? Whereas if your battle is in primary elections, you're dealing with 10 to 20% of the electorate. It's still plenty hard. I'm not trying to say that that's easy. And we have good experience of electing like a handful of people. And then when this handful of people enters the meat grinder, they get ground up mostly. But just a last point on that, I was a little suspicious about when AOC was running, what did we as a left think about her? Did we do due diligence and really pepper her to see what her ideology was and how strong it was and how well developed it was? I can only speak for myself. I didn't do that. I was relying on the judgments of a lot of other people who said, yep, she's good, she's left. Her rhetoric is excellent, but I don't know how well formed and how solid her ideology was. And when I see some of the things that happened, like when the coup in Bolivia was going on, and then she met with some right wing members of right wing people in Bolivia who were pro coup, and I just saw that as this is an ignorant person. This is a person who has a good heart, who sees, oh, somebody from Bolivia, they're Latino, I'm going to meet with them. They're the wretched of the earth. And not doing your due diligence and not learning what the political reality in Bolivia is. I just don't think that her ideology was ever, as strong as people assumed it was. But anyway, sorry, that was kind of the side point.
No, I think you both say something very interesting here. Sabrina says, okay, we have to get money out of politics. Peter says, yeah, but how do we get money out of politics? And we need media. You know who gives me hope? And I think maybe both of you have already seen it. I just saw it yesterday, a very, very good interview with Kshama Sawant and Chris Hedges on Brianna Joy Gray's podcast. And I'm such a huge fan of Kshama Sawant. Mm-hmm. And of course, also Chris Hedges. I love his books and the way he's a real pessimist, but a beautiful pessimist, the way he speaks. And someone like Kshama Sawant really, really makes me hopeful. This lady is such a just amazing person, because what does she do? How do you say that in English? Can you say she swears off money, like a big salary? So she's already now, once she can get more money, she swears off like a part of her salary to show she's a socialist. She only does it for socialism, for Marxism. And when you have a group of people like Kshama Sawant, they are not going to be bought off. Okay, she's now already doing part of her money away. And she also says it in that interview, you must get a team like those people together. In the Netherlands, we have a socialist party where also you can only become part of the party if part of your salary is being given to the party. So the party can promote itself, can buy ads on the media and that stuff. So here you have what Peter and Sabrina both said. You need a team that are not bought off like Shama Sawant, that put part of their money in the big ball of the party and use that to promote, yourself on networks and stuff. In the Netherlands, it was very successful. Socialist Party became very big. So I think that somebody like Shama Sawant, and if you can find it, to create a team, because I think it was in Seattle, I'm not sure, she just beat some recall effort from the oligarchy there. So you see she has power. Imagine that in multiple parts of the United States, and eventually building into a great movement where you only have people who are not going to get the money. They don't need it. If you immediately are willing to pay part of your salary away, you're not going to be somebody who's going to be bought off. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, totally different. That's just a woman who is in there for the idolization and the fame. I mean, I remember that video. You remember that video where she's like, so what about? She's standing there, and then somebody's really asking her a question, and she's like, yeah, we're going to talk about that later. Just like Nancy Pelosi, that arrogance, we're going to talk about that later. And I immediately in that moment, I thought, forget it. This woman is not going to help you guys. That's not a socialist. Anyway, yeah.
The micro and the macro, and I forget what her word salad was, but yeah.
How and the what when she was talking about Israel. Oh, that was so shameful. Yeah.
Yeah, I will add, like, Shama Sawant is amazing. Her group came on here twice, Socialist Alternative. In fact, if you're looking for a group to join, I recommend checking out Socialist Alternative. If you're like don't want to do like Democratic Socialists of America, I know they've had like some issues, national DSA, but that doesn't mean the local chapters are necessarily that way, and that's important for people to know. I know the one here in Massachusetts, like people tend to like DSA here in Massachusetts, so I've heard mostly it's the national DSA. But Socialist Alternative is a strong group. They came on here and they said, like, listen, like, she won because she didn't back down. She doesn't take the full salary. So people see she's the real deal. She does activism. And also she didn't run through the Democratic Party. And I honestly, like, I want to see Shama Sawant on everyone's channel, like, seriously. But one thing I will say too, in reference to that, is local politics. And I think we should pay more attention to local politics as well, not just on a national level. Those of us that live in states that we can do ballot initiatives, this is how we've gotten things done here in Massachusetts. This is how we legalized marijuana. That was a ballot initiative. This is how we got ranked choice voting on the ballot. It was a ballot initiative. So some of these things, if you live in one of those states, and I'll have to put the list up at some point, if you live in one of those states, you need to get together with organizers in your state and come up with ballot initiatives and stop waiting on Joe Biden is never going to decriminalize marijuana federally. I'm sorry, I'm just telling you, you know how it is. He's funding the police state, so he's not going to take that. He's not going to give you that privilege, just being honest.
Yeah, and that could be a good way of building the kind of organization we need on a national level. Like if we can win local political battles, that can be a good way of getting more people on our side locally, and then slowly networking to create a powerful national organization. So yeah, I'm all for that.
And then also I would say, and Eric Thomas and I talked about this earlier tonight on RBN, Eric Thomas came up with a whole list of demands that for those of you who still want to do things through the Democratic Party, you need to demand things from these politicians. He came up with a whole list of them. And I think that's important. So if you didn't see that episode, definitely go back and watch that. It's called Solutions Panel. Franco and Nick were on that as well. But that's the thing. Like, what are our demands? We didn't even ask them for anything. Like, yes, like we repeated Bernie's talking points when he was like Medicare for all. And but what do we want? What are our demands? And we shouldn't just ask for it during a presidential election. We should ask for it when it's not even election season. And I feel like we stopped asking. I feel like when Bernie suspended his campaign, that was it. It was like, okay, that's it. We should always ask for these things.
Yeah, and of course, the problem that we are living in this day and age, the social media celebrity culture, and I think in the United States and many other parts of the world, there are still. This sounds weird, but there are still too many people who are still too well off to not want to push their politicians to do radical change. If you see the amount of people who defend AOC, then I realized there's just not enough people who are in a bad enough situation apparently still, because it's just amazing that you can let this lady just gaslight you all the time. I mean, beautiful words on Twitter. Why don't we have this? Why don't we have that? And then you don't vote for it. It's typical politician behavior. And yet there are people who will just cape for her and just like defend her at all costs. It's just so shocking to me. And that's idle power. That is the power of idle. You also see it with some commentators. Okay, some people cannot stand the fact, for example, that you critique someone like Jimmy Dore. You will get that same kind of rage from people. That's the kind of idol worshipping that has been created within our media spaces.
Yeah, and Kareem, I think there's a powerful psychological phenomena going on there. Like, it was hard for everyone, I know myself included, over the past year and a half, to have, like, we came damn close to kind of using a cheat code of bypassing all of the kind of organization movement building you would otherwise normally need and kind of skip ahead into power through the Sanders campaign. And we came so close, and then when that failed, I think for a lot of people, it was just absolutely crushing, because what's the path forward? What is the hopeful idea we have now? Next, I don't need to go through how depressing it is, but I think for some people, it made them want to, like, find a hero in government that they could believe in, and just so then they have a powerful psychological drive to avoid the pain that would result in getting rid of their heroes or giving up on the squad or what have you. So you have that, I think, psychological drive. And then I think also you have, among the people who do see the squad as, coming in way under expectations, you also have like a kind of, we failed at this, at our last strategy of taking over the Democratic Party, so let's just do something else. But I don't see a lot of careful thought about what exactly is that something else, and what is our chance of achieving that? Are we evangelizing? Are we getting more people on our side to think like us? And I think, again, it's the desire to avoid the pain of recognizing that we are in an incredibly weak and perilous situation. And so instead of accepting that, either create a magical hero out of AOC, or take a kind of nihilistic, like, okay, we failed at the last thing we tried, so let's try something totally new that we haven't really thought through very closely what's required to achieve that. But that's just my speculation.
Well, I would say that at least it destroys, slowly eradicates all that kind of idealistical thinking that people had of politicians, because you do see a change. You see it, for example, with somebody like Nina Turner. A lot of people just don't believe in it anymore. And some people, some commentators on the left, in the left sphere, I won't name names because I think a lot of people are just great. I don't want to make people think that they're not. But some people would say that, well, we still have to give Nina Turner a chance and this and that. Within the machine, and regardless of the fact that she's a very, I like her a lot actually, but I agree with the people who just don't believe in that anymore, and you see that exploding, that sentiment. And personally, I think that's a good thing. I think you shouldn't believe in them anymore until they really show you what they're doing. Words are nothing in the political world. They're nothing, and you saw that with Joe Biden. It's one of the most shocking, blatant lying I've ever seen during a presidential campaign, and doing nothing after you get chosen. It's like, it's not even a little. You see it in the Netherlands too. They promise stuff, and some they do and some they don't, of course. So there's already lying, and you get a lot of anger about that. But what Biden did in the last presidential election, all these promises, just say yes, I'm going to do it all for you, yes, and nothing once he is chosen. You are being fooled so blatantly. It's just, it baffles me. How do you American people are still putting up with that stuff?
Agreed. And I would say, like, for African Americans, like, watching, if you're thinking about continuing to vote for the Democratic Party, again, if they're not running, if they're not offering some type of Black agenda, don't vote for them. Don't. We do this every time. Every time. I think sometimes we feel like we owe them our vote. We don't owe them our vote. We do all this for them. They don't do anything for us. So it's just
even that offer would be like, Biden could offer you a Black agenda. He would just lie about it. That's the problem. They would just lie about it.
That's true. It just I don't I feel like Ice Cube brought this up like in the 2020 election and people just came after him on Twitter and I'm like, what's wrong with what he said? It's true. Like, are we not supposed to ask for anything? Okay, I have one
And
more
that is that
question for
idol
you.
worshipping again. Eh? Sorry. Oh, yeah.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I was saying like exactly what you said about Ice Cube, who says a lot of great things, by the way. Really good stuff. And then I also don't understand that anger. And then you see the same kind of idol worshipping, that kind of attacking the, in my opinion, the wrong person. You know what I mean? Attacking the person who's trying to help you. You see that and you see it with AOC too. Like these people who are disappointed in AOC. Why are you not coming to the strike? Where are you? And then people are all angry at the people who are asking for help. You know, it's amazing.
I have a well said, Ja'Cory. Jim Crow Joe tricked tens of millions of people. I agree, 100%.